Welcome to this 13th now roundtable. So that's gone very quickly, a quarter full of these roundtables. I think most of you have been on a session before, but I think there may be a couple that haven't. So just to a little bit of background, Tony Lockwood, 25 plus years delivering change and transformation. And during lockdown 1, I established the Transformation Leaders Hub, which is a network exclusive for those people working in change and transformation, project and program management. And back in the last year, we set up the 1% Club, which is really a way of sharing some best practices, some tips, some guides, some processes, all around helping you to, excuse me, implement or integrate these world-class basics or marginal gains that we talk about. The format of the session, I'll share some material and then we open it up for discussion. And we're not too strict on how that discussion develops. It's down to you guys. And what we find is that sometimes we end up going down some really, really interesting tangents. And other times we don't, but hopefully today will be one of the interesting ones. So today's session is about productisation, really, and very much focused upon really helping those that are moving more into a sort of consultancy type of lifestyle. Most of the others have been very relevant to whether or not you are in personal life, in career life, or in business life. This is probably the one that is probably more geared to that third option where you are looking to build a business. But there's stuff in it that I think is very relevant anyway, generally. But without further ado, let me share my screen and get into it. So quick evaluation. You can see the 5 P's required for an irresistible offer. Yeah, thumbs up. Yeah, good, thank you. So I suppose the first point to raise on this is why does it matter? And this sort of messaging here that follows on from the previous ones that we've looked at over the last few weeks around people buy from people first and foremost, but ultimately they buy from people they know, like, and trust. So that's what we've talked about in the last few sessions. But actually, I think it goes a little bit further than that now these days as well, where people will ultimately buy, certainly from a service provider perspective, will buy from people they know, like, and trust, but who understand their needs and can demonstrate that they can help. You know, that those extra 2 elements are the key. The know, like, and trust will get you in front of people, but the actual buying decision, as we spoke about 3 or 4 weeks ago, you need to demonstrate that you understand their needs and can demonstrate how they can help them. So today we're going to talk about these 5 elements that I think allow you to get into a place where you can demonstrate that you know their needs and equally demonstrate that you can help them, which will hopefully take you through that buyer's process that we went through a few weeks ago. So the first P is about the people, and we spoke about this in the past, but it's about identifying and really understanding your ideal client. I've had lots of conversations recently on a one-to-one basis and also within groups to say, okay, you know, we're generalists. We tend to work with project, program, change, transformation. So, and we can work across multiple organizations, multiple sectors, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, as long as they're doing a transformation, then, you know, they're my ideal client. That's fine in terms of being able to do the work and deliver the work, but from a marketing perspective and opening up opportunities, then in my experience, then the more you can niche down, the better, and the more you can be clear on the ideal client, the better. And certainly for this process, it's absolutely critical that you niche down into defining what that ideal client is. So, you know, to give you an example, in what I'm doing now, my ideal client are people that have operate within change and transformation, have probably got to a stage in their career that they got beyond that sort of moving from project to project and really want to pivot into building something of value. So I can very niche down, and if I look at the Transformation Leaders Hub, you know, we've got people in there, and it's split between, you know, probably 55% of people in employed positions, the rest in freelance interim type of positions. But there's some of those that are very, very happy moving from project to project, earning a decent living. But equally, there's a small subset of those that are very keen on building something of value that could create a pension for them in due course. And that's what I'm looking to do with this 1% Club, the mastermind program. So, you know, absolutely clear understanding of who the target market is. In my consulting side, you know, I tended to focus in on social housing firms that are driving big transformation, and very much focused upon helping them to understand or undertake an independent assessment. So again, social housing, organisation of a certain size in a certain geographical area that are driving change and transformation. So be really, really clear on that on that target client. The second part, and why the first part is so important, is the second part then says, once you identify that ideal client, what's their pain, what's their struggle, and again, be really clear about that struggle. So again, for me within the Transformation Leaders Hub Mastermind, then it's that ability to understand what it takes to pivot from working on project to project and not getting sucked back into a project in exchanging time for money, to building something whereby you can run multiple projects at the same time with a team of people, and ultimately extract yourself from the delivery and build a consulting business. So the pain point there is that ability to pivot and transition from one way of working to another way of working, and sometimes that can be quite easy, but a lot of times, and I certainly found in the past, it's really quite difficult. And the way that you get that across is almost talking about storytelling, which we spoke about right at the start of these roundtables. Talk about your stories, talk about the pain that you went through, or talk about the pain that other organizations that you've been working with are going through. You can then start to be to help them to understand that you understand their needs, and understand and by understanding their needs, then you've got a potential way forward for them, which leads nicely into the third part of this 5-stage process, which is the promise. So create that solution and be able to demonstrate that solution to them that will help them to understand that you understand their pain, and you have a solution that can take them through that pain and get them from where they are to where they want to get to. And that tends to be, I find, again, using that sort of storytelling approach of taking people through the journey, you know, showing them how other organizations or other people have gone from the state they're in at the moment, the pain that they're experiencing at the moment, to something where they want to get to. And again, just I'm showing you this as to demonstrate what I mean. Within the mastermind program, we talk about this roadmap of, you know, very much helping people to start and get momentum within the first 90 days, so you can move away from getting deep into a program yourself, delivering, to actually putting everything in place so you can actually start to win consulting gigs, to the accelerator, through to the optimize and leverage, and talking through that, and I'll show you what I mean in a little while. Talking through that process with people, it gives them comfort that actually you do know where they are and where they want to get to, and you've got a way of showing you've got a way of taking them from A to B. The fourth stage is that process, so to be their guide. So again, coming back to that original point around, just quickly go back, this point about you understand their needs. The first 3 stages help you to understand their needs, but you can demonstrate that you can help them. This is the fourth stage now of being their guide. So really showing them this sort of productisation bit of showing them what it's going to take to get from A to B. So that promise, that journey that I've just shown you is the high level aspect, but the process is almost the much more detailed element of what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Not necessarily showing them what to do. It's very much about showing them that you know what they have to do, and you have a structured approach to get them from A to B. And when we talk when I'm talking to individuals about building this sort of productisation approach, it is very much about, you know, put your ideal client on a piece of paper in the top left hand corner, and then put your ideal client's outcome at the bottom, and literally put a line between it and map out the activities that you can do to help them to get from A to B. And once you've started to think about that and map that out, it just becomes really illuminating, and you can then start to play around with that and put together a program of activities. So again, just to demonstrate what I mean, within the mastermind, we have this momentum phase, and it's split into 5 areas. So the first thing is we cover the mindset, then the focus, then the business plan, then the business machine itself, and then the social machine. Once you've done that, and to get the sort of foundations in place, we go to the accelerator, which is a 8-stage process, taking people on that journey all the way through to get to the point where they are moving away from the doing themselves and starting to use virtual teams, starting to put technology in, starting to automate, so that they can start to build up the momentum and the lead generation activities that would generate the business moving forward. Optimize, there's a 6-phase thing, and then leverage, there's a 5-stage thing. So again, we can talk about the process that people are going to go through if they engage with us, and it doesn't need to have that level of detail when you're talking to clients, but at least if you can demonstrate that you have a structured approach in terms of that productization bit, then you know, you definitely grab their attention and start to engage with them. And then it'll come down to that final piece of the jigsaw here, which is about price. Again, you will have heard me talk about this so many times in the past. For those that have been on these roundtables, always lead with value. You know, if you can demonstrate that you can generate a return on investment of X number of times return on investment, price is incidental. And if you can guarantee that in some way to take away that risk, again, price becomes incidental. So what you've done by putting these 5 things in place and building out your products in this way, you know, you've been able to very quickly demonstrate that you know the individual, you understand their pain points at an organizational level, at a sector level, and as an individual level. But then you've been able to demonstrate that you've got a structured approach that can take them through that pain through to the promised land, or wherever the B state is. And once you've done that, and if you can then wrap around a price point that is based around value, and again, as an example, I've done in the past a lot of work around cost out and cost reduction programs within organizations. And the product that I've typically gone in with initially is an initial assessment. And that initial assessment depends upon the organization, depends upon the size of the organization, the complexity. You know, sometimes we pitched it in at a 25k fee. Sometimes it was 75k fee, and lots in between, depending on the complexity and the amount of time and number of people we need to get involved. But each one, we've given them the promise that says, if we can't deliver 400% return on investment with easily realizable savings within the next 12 months, don't pay us for this assessment. And some people, when I say that, it's like, I mean, that's quite brave of you. but you do your homework first. You don't go and talk to people and you know, when you're talking to people, you're always working out whether or not they've done anything in the past. And if they haven't, then, you know, you can very quickly realize those levels of savings. But again, every time I've tried that, it's just completely taken the price issue away out of the equation, because they can see that you're very much focused upon delivering value to them. And as long as you've got the other 4 elements in place, they get to know you, they get to like you, they get to trust you, and they get to understand that you know how to take them from A to B. So those are the 5 aspects. Interestingly enough, I think when we're talking about building a business, with you know, a lot of it is around marketing. It's about building that lead generation up, and within the marketing part, I think there's a 6 P, and it's about place, which is effectively call to action. I've just used place almost to say, you know, where do we want to take them to next in your marketing. So when you are doing marketing, you talk and using this sort of framework, the end point is that you want to direct them to do something. So you want to take them to another place. And again, within the mastermind side, we say, well, why don't you go and take a scorecard? Go and do this free, it's a complete free assessment, but within that scorecard, you'll get a personalized report that will show you the areas that you need to focus in on. So again, we've got a scorecard within the consultancy practice that looks at transformation assurance and program assurance. So, you know, quite a detailed scorecard assessment that people can take, and they get a good, really solid, really valuable piece of material back, highlighting areas what they need to focus in on, and areas that they're doing really well, but equally areas that they need to focus in on. What that does, again, it demonstrates to them that you know your stuff. Doesn't need, all it does is gives them lots of things to consider and some pointers in terms of what they need to do. And 9 times out of 10, they come back to you and say, okay, yeah, I need some support in this. I'm not quite sure. Can we move forward? Can we develop the conversation further? So yeah, that's the link to the score app. That's the presentation completed. So if I just go back to that, that's the 5-phase approach that we were talking about. Let me stop sharing and open it up to discussion. So, any thoughts, comments, any challenge to those 5 things? Do you think they are relevant or not? Or, you know, what's been your experience?
The only thing I would say, Tony, is why have you got price at the end? I would have thought that would have been something to have a bit further down, a bit further into the earlier in the discussions.
Well, ultimately, in my experience, price is a factor in a decision making. But if you until you've gone through the other elements with a client, price is incidental, because if they don't know, like, and trust you, they don't believe that you've got a solution, you're never going to get to a conversation about price. No one's going to buy something just because it's cheap, for instance. You know, they'll buy something, especially corporates will buy something because they feel that you've got the ability to take them from where they are to where they want to get to. So I left the price at the end there, because it's only at that stage, once you've taken them through that journey, that price becomes an issue. But the key thing is to focus upon the value, because if you've taken them through that journey, you've helped to build their confidence that you can help them to overcome their challenges or their pain points, and at the end you put the price points based upon the real value that you're going to deliver, and it's a discussion. So by then you'll be able to understand what the cost of the pain is going to be if they don't resolve it. What's the cost to them as individuals if they don't take the lead in resolving it? All of those things can come in to help you to build that value discussion.
But okay, so would you find out whether they've got a budget a bit further on, again, earlier in the process?
Oh, if they've got a budget, yeah.
Yeah, because there's no point going through all that and then they turn around and say, sorry, we've only got a £50 budget.
No, yeah. So yeah, that's in terms of budgeting, then it's part of that early stage conversation, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi Tony, I've got a question. It's Satel.
Hi, Satel.
Hiya. Yeah, so you mentioned at the beginning how, when we're trying to look for our ideal customers, our people even, that we need to hone in on their niche and what their pain points are, and really understanding who they are and what their pains are. But it's like you said, in transformation and in the work that we do, their pains are varied. So how would we hone in and sort of like kind of give the promise of the solution when there are going to be multiple solutions to the pain?
Well, in my experience, the way that I suggest people to do that is really do a review on the types of organisations that you've worked with in the past, that you've enjoyed working with, that you feel that you would enjoy working with in the future, the types of projects that you've got involved in that you've enjoyed and you've been able to deliver maximum value. So that starts to narrow down all the things you've done into stuff that you enjoy doing and you will enjoy doing, and you've got some track record of being able to deliver value. And so that's a good starting point. But if you've still got a whole range of different sectors or different organisations or different challenges that you've worked on, from a marketing perspective, and this is what this is, I suppose, more focused upon around opening up those conversations, in really simple terms, just pick one and say, I'm going after this one, and I'm going to invest time and understand and energies in understanding that sector or that type of projects in one sector or whatever. I'm going to start to understand, I'm going to engage with them to really understand the pain points. So it's just narrowing down, because fundamentally it's this sort of shotgun approach or rifle shot, isn't it? And the more you can really start to talk to individuals in their language, talking about their pain points. So I was talking to someone yesterday, and we were talking about a book that I read. Well, this wasn't a book that I read actually. It was a Blinkist, I think it is called, where you get those summary books. So I was reading a summary of a book over the weekend, and it was about the difference between me marketing and we marketing or you marketing. So a lot of marketing in the past has been about, let me tell you everything I can do for you. It's me. Oh, yeah. And actually, the key is to it's you. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about your pain points. Let's talk about where you need to get to. And you can only do that by niching down and understanding. So from a marketing perspective, the more you can niche down and be very direct to their individual needs or individual pain points, the better. Doesn't stop you from taking work on from elsewhere, but in terms of how you position yourself, the more niche you can become, the more you start to engage with those types of people.
So it's almost like looking for that response to say, yeah, that's me. That's exactly what I need help with, kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because so if we're in a room and I come into the room and shout shit out, yeah, you'll go like this, aren't you? Because I'm talking directly to you.
Yeah.
And in a really simplistic term, that's the same, isn't it? That's what you're trying to do within your marketing. You've got this room full of people, yeah, and within that room, there's probably a handful of people that you could really, actually say, there's a handful of people that would fit your niche. So you've got to talk directly to them. So if you knew the names, brilliant, you could do that cheat that I've just done. But actually, it's the same sort of principle. You need to talk about them so that they say, yeah, bloody hell, you are talking to me directly.
And that would be all more sort of focusing into our collateral, so our social media, our websites, our documentation, our service books, etc.
Absolutely, yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Only from a marketing perspective, though. Again, a lot of people, and what you tend to find is if you market and you put your social media and your LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff together, in that way, you will naturally start to open up opportunities in those areas. But at the same time, you've got a network, and someone might just call you up and say, no, I've got this client completely out over here. Can you help them? And if you can, it doesn't stop you from going and doing it, or doesn't stop you putting the team in to go and do that. But in terms of where you want to become, get known as a small independent consultancy or an individual, the more niche you can become, but you're then not competing against some of the big boys.
Brilliant, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd add to that, because I find that in my journey, I tried to be all things to all people, because I've got quite a large sort of repertoire of experience over the last 35 years. But you've got to really throw that baggage away and say, what do I like to do? Because if you like to do it, then you start to talk a lot about what you can do to help. I think the other thing is that it's one thing to identify the client. It's another thing to actually find the client. And that's what I find tricky, because I'm not really good at cold calling, you know, and you want to rely on inbound. And so therefore, you know, the marketing side, to your point, Tony, is very, very clear. And it's going to appeal to a sector of people who go, oh yeah, I'd like to talk to this person. Yeah. But I've also found that you've got to be quite tenacious and out there all the time. So, you know, you've got to be present, whether it's social media or blogging or putting things up on your website or case studies. And I use my website purely for when I have a conversation, so I can talk to somebody about something, and it acts as my crib sheet as opposed to my marketing tool. But that's the way I'm working. But I do find that the larger the company, the more awkward it is to get them to come clean. So I've just been working with a very large PLC, and the CTO, group CTO, wanted to know this very, very simple piece of information, which I thought was simple. But in his head, he could design it because he's got a brain the size of a planet, as far as he tells all his team. So you go into the meeting and he starts firing all these questions, which are very basic, because you then have to then duck and dive through that customer to get to the point that says, well, you still have a problem. Yeah. You know, and you have to be bold in the meeting, because the only way you will get out of that meeting with a nod and a, yeah, fine, we'll take this forward, is to show them that you are as good, if not better than they are, in the subject matter that you have. And that's more of a character building personal thing, as opposed to the mechanics of getting a customer. And I think, you know, all these tools you need, and even though we've been in business for a long time, working with lots of people, actually on your own, and you've only got your brain, your two hands, and the PowerPoint that you put together, or whatever it is, and you have to weave that rather than doing the work that you want to do, which I find is quite tricky sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things I'd respond to you on that, Damien. One, coming back to your point about marketing, being out there and being present, I think the key word is consistent. So you don't have to be out there every day. You don't have to be posting on LinkedIn 4 or 5 times a day. But what you do need to do is have a consistent rhythm to what you do, because a lot of people, especially people like us, who get sucked into, in the nicest possible way, into projects. And you know, when you get a project, your head down and you're completely focused, and then stuff just stops happening. And then as you come towards the end of the project, it's like, oh, I need to get my head above the parapet again now and get out there and get talking to people. And people work that out, and you haven't got that consistency. You're not getting that natural flow. So what we talk about is almost having I call it an hour of power. That every day, just put in, it doesn't need to be an hour, but an hour or half an hour, 20 minutes, block it out of your diary and do something. and set that rhythm up so that actually you're going to do, say, 2 posts a week on LinkedIn, or a blog a week, or whatever, or a blog a month, but just get into that rhythm. And when you're on there, and it'll start to build up, and you'll start to get the messages out to the right people, and because you're being consistent, people will start expecting to see some stuff for you. And from a LinkedIn perspective, their algorithms will work better when they get some type of consistency and rhythm to the activities, as opposed to 4 or 5 today, nothing for the next 3 weeks, and then, oh, I've got to do something 3 or 4 today. And then coming back to the second point around that, when you were talking about that CTO, I think it's critical that we remember, and again, teaching stuck eggs here, but it's the organisation might have a pain, but the key is to understand the person that's going to be making the decision and their pain points and what they're looking to get out of it. And if the first thing we've got to do is help them to understand that you understand their specific issue and where they want to get to personally. And once you've got through that, showing them that journey, then you're in a better position to show them that actually you can help support their organisation requirements as well. Because unfortunately, especially in corporate life, a lot of times at a senior level, the politics come into play, and it's more about what's in it for me rather than what's right for the organisation. I know that's a big generalisation, but unfortunately, there's a lot of truth in that, I think.
Yeah, totally agree.
Any other points or comments on the model I've just shared? Do you think it's worthwhile? You think it's worth it was worth your investment coming in for the last 35 minutes?
Yeah, I think the conversation is really worthwhile. The five or 6 points are good. They were simple, structured, and all of this, but the conversation about focusing on your customer and their pain and how your experience can help take them through the journey. It's all good stuff. So thank you.
Oh, it's okay. Fine, Chris. So open it up. Anything else to talk about? Don't have to talk about. Oh, Brendan. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, before you move on, just to kind of unpick that bit about pain to promise, if perhaps in a future session, you could do something that deconstructs that pain and starts to kind of articulate that promise, because I think we've already talked about what a challenge that is. Often you go in there and you have those conversations with people, and they are so set in their ways that sometimes you think, I'm not going to make a difference here. Yeah. And kind of you can have an ideal client, but then it's all about making that difference and adding that value. And I'd rather do a job that I'm proud of than have their money and fail spectacularly. So yeah. I don't know what others' experiences are, but there are times when you think I'm not going to get anywhere here. I've done the best that I can. I need to move on. Yeah, bring somebody else in. But I'd rather not have got into that situation in the first place.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the key to any I suppose I was going to say successful business, but I think it's success generally, isn't it? It's choosing what you want to get involved in and being prepared to walk away from stuff that you're not going to enjoy, or the frustration aspect, because it's all about balance. But coming back to your point about pain, one of the most effective questions, and there's lots of variations to this, but one of the most effective questions I've ever come across. And it's really simple, and it might come across a bit crass, but sitting down with the individual and saying, okay, if we were to be sat here in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever the time scale is, what you're talking about, what would life look like for you? And that opens up so many interesting aspects, because you start to unpick then what it means to the individual. And what their focus is, or what their real challenges are, as opposed to the organisation. And sometimes you get a response that it will come to the point, Ben, and it's like, bloody hell, I want to get away. Let me get out of the door quickly on this one because I don't want to go anywhere near it. But that, what I found is that question or variation of that type of question is really, really powerful, just opening up and getting to the real crux. And then asking those, what is it, 5 whys in it. So, okay, well, what does that mean? And why is that important? And why is that important? Because what tends to happen is they sort of, remove the layers over a period of time. They don't just give you everything up front. But as you are engaging with them and as you are showing interest in them, they're building trust up with you and they're opening themselves up. So you just need to just ask that. So what does that mean? And why is that important? And what would that mean for you, or what does that mean for the organization? Just start to unpick some of the things that they come back with. And that can really start to get to the real pain point for them and and for the organization.
No, I mean, fair point. And, I do talk about, what does success look like for you? Yeah. But, and I'm picking that, what do you really need rather than what you want or you think you want? But I mean, I think that's a longer conversation. Thank you.
Lou.
Yeah, hey everyone. So I was just going to follow on from Brendan really to say, so I think it is about the want and the need are different. But I've got a situation at the moment where I have a business that is problematic, has plenty of pain that I could help them solve and have put multiple proposals to solve. But the decision maker is the CEO in terms of, because it's a small startup business, and actually the CEO doesn't want to invest. And in essence, he believes that actually his team should be doing this. The reality is his team can't because they haven't got the capability, the skill, or the experience. And just a capacity constrained. So I think when you talk about pain, it's pain at different levels in the organization as well. So it's not just a one stakeholder mix. It's the pain of actually the operational, for me, it's the operational level of, right, these are the things that the business needs help with. But it's then a completely different position for the CEO. Because actually what he needs is he needs to be able to go to the investors and say it's better, or that he's trying to solve it's a completely different pain problem. But it's actually the same outcome that you're delivering to it. So it's the different positioning of the pain and the value proposition, because actually it is about price on this one. It's interesting because they don't want to invest. So it's just around, well, do you do less and deliver more? Or is it kind of, do you actually only do 3 days versus 5? Or do you actually say, do you know what, you can have me for this bit. This is the chunk of work I'm going to do. These are the outcomes you get. And then I'm going to go, bye, because I suspect that's what's going to happen. So it's just that there's a combination of factors when you think about these things. It's not as simple as just saying one or the other, in my experience.
I agree, and it comes back to a little bit what Robert was saying earlier, wasn't it? It's let's be clear about who's the decision maker, and are you talking to a CTO or an ops director who's genuinely interested? They're probably responsible for resolving the issue, but actually all they can do is get you to the point of getting you engaged with the ultimate decision maker, which in this case was the CEO. And I know it doesn't work, and as Brendan was just saying there, I think you do need to be prepared to walk away from some situations. But again, one of the techniques I've used in the past when I've been with that decision maker and CEO or whatever, especially on smaller organizations, because you affect, sometimes you're making decisions, aren't you, that's saying you can pay me a load of money to do this stuff, or you can take your family on holiday. I know it's a bit, but it's for the founder in many cases, you're taking money out of their back pocket almost. Is to almost do that reverse of what we were just talking about earlier about in 12 months time, what do you want it to look like? It's almost, well, in 6 months time, if you don't do this, what's it going to look like? So, it's separating that. On the upside, it's going to be up here. So they think it's here, but you help them to identify it's up here. And on the downside, they think it's here, but you're trying to get there. So you widen that gap between where they are and where they want to get to. But again, sometimes you can do all of that and it becomes quite clear that they're not going to invest, or they're not going to, not necessarily just invest in money, but invest in their commitment and their drive. And at that stage, it's sensible to, it's a good time to walk away, I find. Kim.
Yeah, just picking up on what Lou said, I've got kind of the opposite issue with the client right now. So we've got a CEO and a CIO who have called us in to do kind of an assurance review over phase 1 of this program, this transformation program they've been doing. They don't feel like it's going well. So now we've been brought in to assess sort of where they're at from both a program side and a change side, and then put a recommendation forward for what they need to do for phase 2, because they haven't kicked that off yet. So we've got at the top saying this isn't really working, but it's interesting as we start to go down in the organization, especially on the program director side, there's a real disconnect from what they think the reality is versus at the top. So it's a better position to be in because we've got the decision makers saying we need to do something different, but now it's just trying to keep an open mind to really understand exactly what is going on down below and why the perceptions are so different. But I agree with your point entirely, Lou. There's so many different levels of stakeholders and the perceptions at each of those levels are different. It's just trying to understand, yeah, who's going to make the decision and what is the real story.
Yeah, agreed, absolutely. Chris.
Yeah, hi. Just wanted to come back to your guarantee. When you talk about value and then you say, okay, 400%. Sorry, I just saw the cat. 400% ROI in 12 months. So that's a good gambit, and it's a nice thing to say. Do you measure it religiously, or do you realize that after 12 months, the program may have had to change from the original and the benefits may be different, even if they are significant? Do you measure it, or does your client measure it, or is it forgotten along the road?
It depends upon the client, to be truthful, and it depends upon how that engagement goes. So if the engagement, and you know, fortunately, I've never had anyone come back in and take advantage of that offer. Even though in some cases we haven't got that 400% easily realizable benefit. But that's the way, again, just how you position as you go through and how you build that trust up as you go through. So you know, it's a way of demonstrating value. It's a way of saying and demonstrating that you understand where they are and you're putting their perspective.
Demonstrating confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The other one I did, and I've done it about 4 or 5 times, and again, touch wood, no one's ever come back. I was doing a piece. It started off. I was doing this piece of work with a client, and it was a little bit like what Lou was saying. The chief exec, in my case, it was CFO, who had spent a lot of time, and he knew that we had the solution, and he knew that we could do it, but they were in some difficult situations with their investors, and he was constantly pushing back on the price. And in the end, I just said, look, being really transparent with you, because it's not just me, it's a wider team. My cost, the price to you, it's the fee to you is going to be, I can't remember what it was, but say 60 grand or whatever. Yeah, my cost in terms of the people that I'm working with and I need to pay, etc., is 30 grand. So I'll do this piece of work, and if at the end you don't think you've had 60 grand's worth of value, pay me 30 grand. And it's like, yeah, but how do I demonstrate if I've got value? It's like, well, don't worry about it. If you don't feel that you've got value for 60k, you know, just sign off 30k. But I just want you to sit down and say what we could have done better, so I can learn from it for the next one. And he signed off there and then, and paid us 60k. So it's just, again, it's positioning yourself in a slightly different way. And you know, at the time, it was a bit of when I did it for the first time, it was a bit of a flippant comment. And I sat down with Chris, I don't know, 8-9 months later, and he said, until you said that, I probably wasn't going to sign it off. but then you said it. It's like I knew I was going to pay 60k. I wasn't issue then, but you put yourself in my shoes. You understood where I was, and I could understand commercially what you were talking about, and I knew that you could get me there. And you put skin in the game, and you actually use that sort of term. You put skin in the game, and I've used it a number of times. It's not applicable in many cases, but again, it just demonstrates that you have got skin in the game, that you have got that confidence in your own abilities. And if it's coming down to just price, and coming back to my point, if you haven't gone through the other 4 stages, the price conversation is a bit meaningless. But that stage, it was coming down to price, and you can there's a number of different tools and techniques that you can use just to ensure that you're positioned in the right way, and you know, that skin in the game is a good phrase, really, I find. So we've just broken through 15:15, so we've done some 45 minutes, so it's coming up to 20 past. Happy to stay on if you've got other topics or other conversations or other comments, but otherwise we'll bring it to an end. So any final points or anything else? No? Well, thank you very much again for coming along and getting involved and asking the questions and sharing your experiences. And look forward to seeing you next week, hopefully.
Thanks, Tony.
Cheers, Dan. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Penny.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers,
Bye,
bye.
everyone.